So let's go ahead and rig this model. Before we do, let's make sure we select the full model, edit, delete all by type history. This is because if we look at our attribute editor, I have this poly split edge and I have some other transform constraints here, not constraints, sorry, some transform nodes here that I don't want when I start to rig. So I want a completely clean model, delete all the history. And now all I have are my general global kind of position node, the poly shape node, and then the materials that I've attached. I also added a different material to the feet. And then also if we look in our outliner here, I've labeled Finch, which is the bird, and then I have a left eye and a right eye, and I've labeled them left and right. Okay, so to rig, we are going to go to our rigging menu set. And I'm going to want to work in one of the orthographic views in order to start placing our skeleton into this rig. So let me go to my 4 quad views. And the reason these models are showing up gray is because they're just in shaded and not texture mode. So as I kind of hover over each of these views, I'm able to press the 6 button and show my texture. I'm going to start with this front view. And I'm going to hit spacebar just to bring this into view. And this orthographic view is just a flat view, so I'm able to place a skeleton structure in the middle. And whenever we start to build a joint hierarchy, we want to place the first joint kind of at the root of the model. So the thing that kind of propels a body forward, if it's a kind of living form like this, would be like the hips. The hips typically are the kind of center of the body, and other components of the body will move and rotate in relation to that hip bone. So to create a skeleton, I go to skeleton and say create joints. So now I have my joint tool, and I'm going to put a root skeleton right in the center of my model. Now I can't see it. I can hit 4 and I can see this as a wireframe. I'm also able to turn on under shading and say X-ray joints. And this is useful so I can continue to look at my model, but also see those joints X-rayed through it. Now, another thing about this joint is if it's too small or too large for my model, I can change that here. I can give it a smaller, or I can give it a larger radius. Okay, and so now I have here joint 1 in my joint hierarchy. Now, if I continue to drop joints, you'll see that they will start to create a joint chain kind of hierarchy here and a kind of skeletal structure. So the next joint I might want to place is up by the wings. And you can see that there's now this bone that's been drawn where it's kind of a triangle shape. And the point is pointing to the child from one joint down to the other in the hierarchy. And so as we're building this, we're going to be thinking about how these joints are connecting. And then here in the outliner, you see I have a top joint. It's connected to the secondary joint here, and it's just called joint 1 and joint 2. I'm going to be renaming these later. So also from the root, from here, from this joint 2, I'm going to want to kind of decide how I want this bird to move. From this joint, I might want the wings to have their own joint. This skeleton doesn't have to mimic the way the bird's actual skeleton will work. So what I might want to do is kind of click off the tool for a second and then go in and place another kind of, let's say, neck joint, and then connect that to the head. And what you'll see is that these two are not connected. I can do this manually by making them a child object. And because I want this joint and this joint to be on the same kind of hierarchy level, I want them both connected to the root. I'm going to middle mouse over this third one and just drop it on top of joint 1. This one here, not joint 4, sorry, joint 3, select that and drop it onto joint 1. Now I start to have the right kind of shape here, the right kind of hierarchy. I might go in and start to label these. So I'm going to label this root and then _J for joint. just like here in the attribute editor where I had underscore mat. Those are just some naming conventions that are typical. This one will be shoulder underscore J. This one here will be neck underscore J. And open this up and say head underscore J. Okay, so we have some. I'm going to want to put some on the feet and also on the tail. I'm in a good position to do that. So always the last tool I've used is here in my toolbar. So have that selected, and let's put one at the kind of base of the tail, the end of the tail, and then I can hit enter. I can go back to this tool, and let's put one maybe at the knee. And then now if I'm really gonna be doing some really fine modeling, I would put one at the end of each foot here, but I'm just gonna maybe put one in this demo just right at the base of the foot. Now these aren't connected, so let me go and connect them. I can rename this. This will be tail underscore joint. Maybe I'll say this is tail end underscore J. And this is knee. And this is foot. Now there's two legs, there's 2 feet, and then we're going to have to also do the wings. So let's look from a different perspective onto this model. Another really good thing about this model, let's make sure in this viewport I have shading X-ray joints turned on, is that because this model is placed, and it's important to keep it in the center of the world space, those joints will be right in the center of the model, because as we're placing joints in that orthographic view, it will snap them basically to that 0 position in the Z value, whatever value you're looking at, it will snap it right to that center point. So I do want to connect to the tail, also to the root. So I'm just going to middle mouse and drag it on top of that root. I'm going to take the knee and I'm going to attach it here also to, maybe I'll attach it to this tail. That might make sense. Let's drag and drop this to here. But now you'll see, I have in the middle, this is my foot joint. So I'm going to want to move that. Let's open up and go to this knee and let me move this. Now looking at my perspective view, I'm going to move it here to the left of the model. I'm also going to move this foot joint over a bit. And what you'll see about the joints, I don't want to rotate them at this time. I want to just be moving them into place. So I don't want to rotate anything. This is because when I look at my channel box editor, where they're located in space is okay, but we want to maintain this 0, 0, 0 rotation value for our joints, and it'll become clear why as we start to rig and animate this. But now this is no longer just knee, this is going to be the left knee. So I'm going to go back in and right before it says knee, I'm going to say L underscore knee. And then also for foot, I'm going to go in and say L underscore foot. And now let's do the same thing with this side of the wing. And I think looking from this side view will be good. Let's go to shading, X-ray joints turned on, and go back to our joint tool, and let's maybe position a wing here, and then depending on how much, I might actually just put one here and one at the end. And then let's drop this to the shoulder joint, connect it there. And not that one. I want the top joint one here, connected to the shoulder. Okay, now I see that bone is going to this joint, and then this bone is going to this joint. So I'm going to rename this left wing J, and then I can say left wing tip maybe. I just want to name them something so it's recognizable if somebody else is, in industry, somebody's rigging and somebody else is animating. So you have particular naming conventions so that the animator who has not rigged this model knows what everything is. Okay, now the last thing we need to do is we need to create these joints on the other side of the model. And we don't want to just go in and add other joints. There's actually something I want to do. If I'm looking now, my perspective view here, there's a way I want to mirror these joints. And that's going to be by selecting them in the hierarchy here. I want the left wing here. And let's see, maybe I'll do them separately. So I'll do it twice. So I'm going to select this left wing. What I want to do is recreate them on the other side of the model. And I'm going to do that by saying skeleton mirror joints. Now let me go to my, the options here. And this is what you'll see. This is what you'll see when you open the options. And the first thing it's asking you is what axes do you want to mirror across? And I think I want to mirror, in the Z direction, right? So to mirror in negative Z, it's a little bit different than when you mirror modeling. It's asking for the same thing in a different way. So mirror across X, Y. So that makes sense in the Z. And we want to replace names. So I want to search for L and I want to replace with R. So let's hit mirror. And now I have in the same location mirrored across, I have an R wing joint and an R wing tip joint. So let's do the same thing with the leg. I'm going to select the knee and I've already set my options, which is to look for L to mirror across that axis, to look for L and replace with R, and I'll just hit mirror joints. And now I want to let's just select those wings on both sides. And let's select those knee and foot joints on the other side. And let's go to skeleton and let's say orient joints. Let's orient the joints just for the wings and the feet. And let's, and the reason we want to orient is when you, if I use my move tool here, and let's turn it to component. When we mirror, these joints mirror in a weird way that it reverses the pivot's orientation. So I want to orient these, and the best way to do it is just to the easiest way, I think, is just to orient it to the world space. There's probably better ways to do it, but this is how I do it. Select everything here, say orient joints. Let's look at our options. And I just hit orient to the world and say orient. And that kind of changes our orientation. It reorients those joints just to the world space, but at least it's kind of maintaining the Z direction, and up is, the Y axis is pointing up for all the joints, etc. Okay, so we have our joint hierarchy here. And I think that is where we want it to be before we go ahead and skin this model.